Season's greetings, my fellow film fanatics. I am the Silver Screen Slasher, and welcome back to the 12 Days of Willis. Today, I've brought along some extra company for this review. Please welcome back the Film Reject.
Hello everyone.
Hi there.
I'm the Film Reject and I reject films that aren't worth mentioning. And yes, I'm back once again.
Hey. And I am...
Co-starring Spike Green from the Film Geek Collective.
Well, yeah, we're all part of the Film Geek Collective. I've said that before time and time again, but that's okay. Just being totally open. I made a few notes about Die Hard of my own, obviously, like I do with my podcast. So if you see me looking off the screen, then that's why.
Oh, don't worry, that's totally fine. And today we also have a very special guest. But after all, he's been no stranger to some of our film reviews. Please welcome Mythical.
Hey guys, I am Mythical over here. And this is my second time I'll be reviewing. My last review was last year in an audio about the movie Scream.
Actually, it was way earlier this year, back in January. Back when we were doing the original Scream. If memory
January 2020 on the podcast, the Film Geek Collective. So if you want to look at that,
and I sounded like Vito Corleone because I had voice problems, but it was only temporarily.
It's okay.
Yes.
Temporary.
Yes, but man, can you believe that was less than that was 11 months ago?
I couldn't believe it either. In fact, the podcast has recently just been running for just over a year now, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming in really close to the 2-year anniversary.
No. I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary. I'm not gonna have 2 years until next year. Yeah. Anyway.
And honestly, I can't think of a better way to. And honestly, I can't think of a better way or Christmas movie than today's topic. Today we are looking at Die Hard, released in 1988, and also what I consider to be the origin point for Bruce Willis's action movie career.
Note that this review will have explicit content and spoilers.
Oh yeah, yes, because of course, just to give you a bit of another warning as well to add to that is, has pretty extreme amount of blood and swearing.
And
if you like that sort of stuff,
please enjoy. Extreme.
And for anyone who hasn't seen this movie, spoilers.
Major spoilers.
Yeah. So, let's take a look at Die Hard, and well,
also contains a large amount of highlights.
Let's get this building party started.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The movie starts off as introducing us to Bruce Willis as police officer John McClane, who was just getting off a flight to meet up with his wife Holly at her office Christmas party.
I should probably mention that building they were building Fox Plaza at the time. Nakatomi Plaza is fictional and was being built for 20th Century Fox at the time, so yeah.
But anyway, as Spike and Silver said, but unfortunately, a few moments later, a group of terrorists start coming in and terrorizing the place and keeping most of the citizens by hostage. So it's up to the main character, John McClane, to save the day, picking off the terrorists one by one and killing them in pretty brutal ways.
Not to mention all the stuff that happened in between that. For example, introducing us to the guy who was sitting next to McClane on the plane, who gave him a bit of advice. After getting off the airplane and when you get where you need to go, take off your shoes and socks and walk around on the road barefoot, making fists with your feet.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, and I love how that comes back. I love it,
Yeah, it's just I love that too. It's very early foreshadowing as to what's going to happen. And then also introduced to probably one of what I consider to be the funniest characters in the movie, Argyle. John's limo driver.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Mitchell. Shit.
Sometimes when it's an emergency, you're going to have to leave your shoes and socks behind.
Yeah, that's true. Eventually, Argyle manages to drive John onto the Nakatomi building and eventually bumps into the guy who owns the building, President Joe Nakatomi. And honestly,
Nakatomi.
We don't have to go through the entire plot beat by beat. Let's share our thoughts on the certain scenes and what we thought.
Maybe we should not do that. One more thing that I forgot to mention that I feel like is important: the group of terrorists are led by their leader, Hans,
Gruber,
played by
the late
Alan Rickman.
Yes.
This is by far one of the best action movie villains I've seen in a while.
Oh,
and
yeah.
not to mention, played by a great actor who knows how to play good villains. I mean, seriously, this guy was Severus Snape in the Harry Potter films. Going on from 20 years later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the actor's name?
Alan Rickman.
Ah, yeah, the guy who played the German terrorist.
Yeah, and he actually passed away a while ago.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, rest in peace, man.
He was a great man.
Yeah. Regardless, Hans Gruber is just one of those classic action movie villains that you just love to watch be on screen.
Well, it may be pretty horrific if he's not even going to give you to the count of 4 before he shoots you.
That may be so. Eventually, the whole plan of Gruber and his men it's not to be terrorists, but to actually steal all the money and priceless artifacts from the Nakatomi Building's vault.
But I was going to say, yeah.
Terrorists the whole time.
I was going to say, yeah, like, it's not really, sure, there's violence, but it's about the cunning and the resourcefulness of the person. Like, we've assumed that if you're watching this, you've seen the movie. We don't need to summarize everything that happens. Mm-hmm. You know what happens. So, basically, I really think that what's really going for this movie is that there's not a moment that's wasted. Simply none. The moment where the guy says, do this with your feet, that comes back, obviously, with the glass and the feet of Bruce Willis that are seen actually are rubber shoes of a very realistic sort. They are shaped exactly to look like his bare feet to protect them from the glass. So yeah. And
makes sense.
Admittedly, Bruce Willis actually still gets squeamish whenever he has to watch that scene.
Well, anyone would feel that way walking over a whole bunch of glass.
So simply, Bruce Willis wasn't able to step on the glass. If he actually dared to do that in real life, that would be great. But it's still dangerous. So at least making fake feet was the right choice.
Speaking of, when I saw that scene, and him slowly taking off the bits of glass on his feet, and just like literally a big crap pile of blood. Oh, that's so squeamish, don't you think? Because that kind of made me squeamish.
Yeah.
Well. Like,
yeah, I mean, it costs. I mean, seriously, that scene alone felt like something out of a horror movie. But
like
it does.
The closer depictions of violence are to reality, in a way. Like the more relatable they are, the more you'd encounter them. Like, you could easily accidentally break glass, and if you're not careful, you could skewer your feet on the glass, and that's why it feels so painful to watch. And especially, all the blood does add to it, but it's not like you're going to get in an everyday situation where you're shot by gangsters or whatever,
I just thought it'd say as well, there are times where I feel like this film can also be a little intense, if you know, and because, well, the criminals lock down the building so no one can get in or out. And, well, the cops are outside having trouble trying to get in. And what's so scary about that is, well, there are hostages inside, and John McClane is the only police officer in there. Like, literally, the only one. There's no backup, nothing, pretty much.
It shows detail how the cops were unable to get inside.
I want to point something out, though. The police are mostly unaware of the entire part that the Nakatomi Building has been taken hostage. That is until we are given and one of my other favorite characters in the movie, the officer Al Powell, played by Reginald Bell Johnson, who you would probably know it was the cop that was with Steve Urkel.
Speaking of that guy, I was about to say, he's probably another one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Yeah.
And do you know what's weird though? John McClane at one point though, calls himself Roy.
Yeah.
It's be a Western thing.
There's a reason why it is.
The only reason he calls himself, the only reason that McClane calls himself Roy is basically as a code name, because Powell hasn't seen what McClane looks like, and therefore he can't trust him. So I'm thinking he might be one of the terrorists, actually. Not to mention, this also brings up a bit of a cliche that runs through the movie. The fact that every higher up authority figure is just corrupted by the lust of power and attention. And whereas the guy at the bottom of the list is the one that causes the least damage.
I mean, I like also there's the black comedies throughout, like just little pepperings of it. When the guy comes down the elevator, now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho.
Oh yeah.
It's
But
just
I'm just
very
saying
slight.
he does
Still.
it a bit,
Yeah,
a bit
I
more
agree.
intense
That
way.
sweater which said, "Now I have a machine gun." Ho, ho, ho was pretty.
That's probably
fun.
another
That was the best
But,
part.
one
but
of
I
the
often
most
wish it was
memorable
continued
scenes
with
in the
this.
movie.
Yeah, but I often wish it was followed up by message continued on us.
They thought it came from
Oh.
Santa.
Do you know what I like about this John McClane at times as well, at least in the original? Is at times he's almost doing this just to, I don't know, well, fuck with the gangsters or the terrorists, you know, and like
Yeah.
he's there like I'm just doing that to probably scare them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if
I
they're
totally agree. But
I guess if they're scared of him as a threat, then they're not gonna really mess with him too much, are they? And also,
another
I just
scary
always
thing about him is, well, most of the time they're looking for him and they don't even know where he will strike next.
Yeah.
I always want to do this, by the way. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yeah, and that was the one line that a lot of TV networks had trouble actually censoring. Hell, at one point with Die Hard 2, they dubbed it in with "Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon."
And the voice sounds nothing like Bruce Willis.
I know.
Speaking of, I was about to get to this as well. This film probably has some of the most memorable lines ever. Like, well, now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
Or when
Also
he's trying to get through the walkie-talkie and he's like, "No fucking shit, lady. Do I sound like I ordered a fucking pizza?"
and
Yeah.
also
Or when
this
John
line.
McClane gets caught by one of the terrorists, he was told that cops have rules. And
Yeah.
what's it called? John McClane responds, "Well, you're right. That's what the chief always told me." And then the fight begins. That's actually clever dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Not to mention, I should bring up another pretty douchey character in this movie, Richard Thornburg, played by Walter Peck himself, William Atherton. He plays he's a pretty douchey TV news reporter.
Oh yeah.
Have we all just forgotten the principal from The Breakfast Club is in this movie?
I think so.
Actually, I did not realize it. It's, I mean, give me a break. It's been a few years since I've seen The Breakfast Club.
Oh, and also one of the few things as well I wanted to say about the memorable lines is it also memorable lines up like, "Welcome to the party, pal."
Welcome to the party, pal. Oh, when he's crawling through the vent, like, I love how
Girls, we get together, haven't you left?
I just love how he's coping. Like a lot of cops use black humor. People complain about Marvel films these days. Oh, too much humor. They're quipping too much. I can sort of understand that, but I sort of, it was pointed out by Bruce Willis. He was interviewing. Well, no, not interviewing. Anyway, he was with cops during the production of the movie, and they often use black humor to cope.
Yes.
And, he just sort of did the same thing in his performance.
Oh, and also one part what
It feels like.
what I also like is, well, actually, I mean, one of the most iconic and best line of them all in the entire film is this line, of course, as Spike just pointed out before, but that is, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker."
It is probably the most memorable line in the entire movie, and with the sequels, they do tend to use it as a bit of a running joke.
But also, I just while we're reviewing Die Hard, I just wanted to show this off. I'm going to count to 3. There will not be a 4.
Now that is starting to remind me of Severus Snape when you make that imitation.
I also forgot to mention was this line. It's at literally the last few minutes of the movie. "Happy trails, Hans."
Yes. I read a comment somewhere that some people, they don't feel like it's Christmas until Hans falls out that window to his death.
Oh, come on! And Die Hard is an unintentional Christmas movie. Hell, the movie even takes place during Christmas. What?
Christmas Eve, to be exact.
Yes. I mean, seriously, how big a flag do we need to
same
wave to
time.
point out that Die Hard is a Christmas movie?
I think so.
Not much people would think that until they see it.
Well,
Yeah.
well, literally at a few points, I'm pretty sure in the movie, I mean, after all, you do see a Christmas tree in the background, for crying out loud.
And I should probably bring this up. Even when the FBI show up, they completely screw things up. They think by cutting off the power, they've isolated the bad guys inside, but they did them a favor by shutting off the boat's locks.
I think it just fucks things up, honestly.
Yeah, and eventually, not to mention there are plenty of good scenes I like. For example, when the FBI actually tried to blow up the roof of the building, and John has to use a fire hose to jump his way off.
Oh
How
yeah.
stressful.
one of my favorite things about this movie is just his sheer inventiveness, hanging off a fire hose or crawling through the vent, or that's actually Bruce Willis on top of that elevator. Although they use a stuntman when that place where the elevator, he's not in or on the elevator, but it's
Yeah.
where it could come up. There was a stuntman who unintentionally he tried to grab the first bit, but then he ended up falling and he grabbed the second bit, which I think is in a cut with Bruce Willis grabbing the other thing. I can't remember exactly, actually.
Yeah. Eventually,
similar.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we should get around to the end of this movie and see what happens from there.
Mhm.
Eventually, after the FBI just bombards the entire roof, if Hans Gruber does eventually figure out who John McClane's wife is and tries to use her as a human shield.
Mm.
But eventually John manages to turn the tide and have Hans dangling out a window, which eventually leads to one of my favorite bad guys falling out of window shots. as well as one of my favorite falling faces. And why do I point that out? Because they lied when they told him when they were going to drop him. And the guy, apparently director John McTiernan said they were going to count to 3 and then drop him. But to get the realness of his reaction, they can only count to 1 and then let go of him.
One quick thing before we sum it up. The last few minutes of the film actually is also this. Could you just say that the action, of course, as always, is pretty dang fun, gory fun, as I like to call it.
Not really gory.
Bloody.
Be like,
it's not really gory.
Like limbs
well,
and
blood,
stuff.
I mean,
bloody, you know what I mean.
It's typical action movie violence.
Mm.
Hey,
Yeah, blood spurting. Yeah.
I put this kind of violence up there with Predator 2.
And the way John
It's came out
McClane
2
as well
years later.
kills some of the bad guys in this. Let's admit, he kills them still in pretty creative ways. Like I believe he hangs one of them by chains.
I was going to
Shooting
say.
one through a table.
Oh, and may I also point out that a while ago I actually did a review of Die Hard myself on my podcast. If you want to hear some more of my thoughts, probably back then. I can't remember everything I said, and I didn't want to repeat too many things here. And it's all good. It's fun to have. I'm not going to be shy about revisiting. I'm not going to be shy about revisiting films. If I want to revisit a film, see other people's perspectives as well. This is what these are for as well. I can have more than one time.
Anyway, Silver, do you want to finish the last few minutes of the ending?
Yeah, eventually. So after Hans Gruber falls to his death, John and Holly make their way out of the building, and eventually, Officer Powell and McClane finally meet each other face to face. And honestly, it's pretty good. Until one of the still living goons makes his way out of the building and tries to shoot McClane. But then, bang! Shot dead. By Powell of all people.
Oh, I forgot to mention a few bits of trivia. I'm sorry, but the cinematographer ended up being the director of Speed. During the production of this, he was trapped in an elevator, and that inspired the opening scene of Speed.
Mm.
Well, the more we know, the better.
Oh, wow.
Eventually, after Holly decks Walter Peck in the face, eventually Argyle helps him in the limo, and they drive off with Let It Snow playing over the end credits.
And one more thing that I want to mention is, I believe as well one of the FBI agents was played by one of the crooks in The Goonies.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
One of them I'm pretty sure is from The Goonies.
The Goonies never say die. Die Hard does.
And that was Die Hard. One of the best action movies and one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time. And I'm telling you, it makes much more Christmas references than the Black Christmas remake does.
So, to sum it all up, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Hang on. Who wants to give their rating for this film?
5, 10.
I like to.
10.
Well, I don't know any cons, so 10. 10 out of 10.
I'm just saying I would actually give this an 8 out of 10.
Oh, yeah? Any cons?
Anyway, still pretty close, right? Still pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
I still like this film. In its own way. I still think it's one of the greatest and most iconic action films of them all, and will become one of the greatest. It is one of the greatest.
Yes. I think the reason why you gave it an 8 is because of these typical cops in earlier in some of the scenes, but lucky it's not too rampant. At least most of them smart and unaware.
That's true. And who knows? Maybe next year we'll get around to end up reviewing Die Hard 2.
Quite possibly. I've only ever seen the first one. It's weird, I know, but...
Oh, that's right. I've only seen the first one as well just today.
And because of its premise, it probably spawned games like Time Crisis, which also has a similar premise.
And
except it's more run and gun.
Lots of things were described as Die Hard on an X. Speed is Die Hard on a bus. That's one example. Anyway.
Oh, one last thing to mention. I kind of thought that the Nakatomi building itself was very similar to the Clap building in Gremlins 2.
I wouldn't know. I haven't seen that one, but...
Yeah.
Anyway, should we end this video?
Sure.
Anyway, I'll see you guys later.
And anyways, see you later.
Next time on the 12 Days of Movies, I'll be taking a look at a lesser-known Disney Christmas cult classic, I'll Be Home for Christmas. But these guys won't. Bye!
Bye! We won't see you not till later on.